So this is convert to exponential notation. What does that mean? No, the laughing's going to be on the video, guys. See, now it's more awkward. Good. You need a fraction. You're right. So I have 32 to the what? And there needs to be an exponent somewhere, not a radical. Go ahead.
1/5.
1/5. Do you know that answer? You don't have to find the answer. Okay, this is the correct answer. Okay, because it says exponential notation, you're done. But does anybody know what the 5th root of 32 is? It's 2. How did he know that? He knew 2 to the 5th was 32. So the 5th root of 32 has to be the inverse, has to be the opposite. So that has to be 2. What if you have a root and an exponent? Which one goes on the bottom? Good. So it's over 5. The exponent, guys, it already lives up at the top. So keep it on the top of the fraction. 21 to the 2/5 power. Does that have an answer that you know right now? Do any of your exponents that you know equal 21 ever? No. Okay, so that is exponential notation. That would be your final answer. Okay, now it says convert to radical notation. So that means I actually need some kind of root. What kind of root is that? A square root. Do I write the 2? No. Okay. It's just the square root of 9. Guys, the 1/2 power is always a square root. What's the 1/3 power? Cube root. What's the 1/4 power? 4th root. Okay. Any fraction with a 1 on the top, it's just that root. Okay. I always remember it because roots grow in the ground for trees, so the root should be on the bottom of the fraction. Exponents already live kind of up at the top, so make sure they stay up at the top. What is the square root of 9? 3. Okay, that's perfect. You don't have to write the 3 because it just says convert to radical notation, so square root of 9 is fine also. What about if it says 10 to the 3/4? Which one is the root? 4. So the 4th root of 10 all to the 3rd power. Is there a 4th root of 10? No, so that's your final answer. For those of you that are really curious, you could try to do 10 to the 3rd first, and then see if there's a 4th root, okay, but that doesn't work either. Okay, so you can go ahead and try that if you want to, but this is a decimal answer. So, examples down here. If you have a to the m over n, it's really the nth root of a all to the n power. Remember, the root is on the bottom. So what's the root here? Square root of 4 all to the 3rd. What's the square root of 4? 2 to the 3rd. 8. Okay, what about the second one? What's the root here? 3. The cube root of 8 all squared. Cube root of 8 is 2. Squared is 4. Okay, this is where things get a little tricky, so please be careful. Guys, see how you have parentheses here? That negative is included with the 8. They are friends, they are hanging out together. Like they go hang out after school, like they see each other, they sit with each other at lunch, they actually like each other, they are friends. So when you rewrite this, it's the cube root of -8 all squared. What is the cube root of -8? -2. Still in parentheses, squared is what? 4. Good. When you square things, it's always positive. What's different about this negative?
No, he's on the outside.
Yeah, he's on the outside. Like he is kind of that person that just like follows you around and like sits at your lunch table, but you're not really friends with them. Okay, like you want to be nice, you want to include them, but they don't really hang out with you outside of school. So they're just chilling in the front the entire time. Okay, they are not included in the cube root. So when you do this, it's the cube root of 8 squared, and then who's outside following you around? That negative. Okay, cube root of 8 is 2, squared is 4, but what did I lose? He's coming right back. There he is. He's always there.
Always second.
Okay, so if it's inside the parentheses, he's your friend. He's included in the entire answer. The entire process, he's on the inside. If there are no parentheses and he's chilling in the front, he just kind of follows you in the front the entire time. Right? What if you have negatives? We know how to do this. Okay, ooh, this looks terrifying. This is like what a math textbook says. So if there's a negative exponent, what do you do with that? You move it to the bottom. So it's really 1 over a to the m divided by n. That looks even more terrifying. What does that fraction exponent really mean? Yeah, the nth root of a all to the m power. Okay, so the whole thing that you're solving just moves to the bottom. Okay, this is what a math textbook would tell you. Okay, these are what you're really going to care about here when I solve them. So 4 to the negative 1, where does that go? The bottom, and it's just 4 to the first. Guy, do you guys need to solve that at all? No, it's just 1/4. Okay, what if it's 9 to the negative 1/2? Move it to the bottom. 1 over 9 to the 1/2. You don't have to write that step because you know what the 1/2 power is. What does it mean if it's to the 1/2 power? The square root of 9, so 1/3. Same process here. It's a negative, so where does it go? The bottom, so 1 over 125 to the 1/3. You know what the 1/3 power is. What's the 1/3 power? The same as cube root of 125. Anything that ends in a 5, the answer is probably 5. So it's 1/5. What's different about number 4? It's a fraction without a 1 on the top. It has a number on the top. What's that number on the top going to end up being? A root or an exponent? Exponent, good. The bottom is the root. So first, you want to move it down so that the exponent changes to a positive. Then you want to rewrite that as the square root of 16. Whoa. Hold up. The square root of 16 all to the 3rd. Oh man, here we go. What's the square root of 16 to the 3rd power? 64. Again, if you don't know what 4 to the 3rd power is, you know 4 times 4 is 16. Then you go off to the side and you do 16 times 4 like you're back in 3rd grade. I don't care how you get the answer as long as you get the right answer. Okay, so number 5. 81 to the negative 3/4. I don't like negatives. I want to fix that right away. So that's 81 to the positive 3/4 on the bottom. Which one is the root? 4. Root's from the ground. It's on the bottom. So the 4th root of 81 all to the 3rd power. What's the 4th root of 81? 3 to the 3rd. 27. 127. And again, I don't know if I said this. You don't have to show all of these steps. I'm the teacher. I have to show all of my steps so that you understand what's going on. If you can go from this to this, I'm fine with it. Okay? If you don't have to write this out, if you can just skip this step and go here, fine with it. As long as you know how to get the right answer. Uh-oh, what does number 6 have? That negative, that always just hangs out outside. So he's going to hang out outside. It's going to be negative 1 over 64 to the 2/3. I just leave the negative up top. I'm trying to avoid him at all costs. So I'm just going to leave him with the 1 so that I don't lose him. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite that as negative 1, the cube root of 64 all squared. Cube root of 64. 4, right. Guys, you know the square root of 64 is 8. So it's got to be smaller than that. And the only other one that makes sense is 4. So the cube root of 64 is 4. Squared is 16. Negative 116. That was your quick Algebra 2 review. Now we're starting pre-calc. It's not bad at the beginning.
It's not bad. I'm looking down at the end.
Yeah. It's okay, we'll be fine. Do me a favor and just go like that. I will solve it if it bothers anybody. It is totally doable, but I don't want to confuse the entire group by going over it. So I will definitely solve it later, just not right now. Starting with number 1. If you have a negative on the outside, what should you do? Flip it. So now it's 25 over 9 to the positive 1/2, guys. You know this. What's the 1/2 power? Square root. Square root the top, square root the bottom. So the square root of 25 over the square root of 9 is what? 5 over 3. Okay, again, if you have a negative on the outside, what do you want to do? Flip it. So flip it over. Change that exponent to a positive. Now we have a root and an exponent. Which one is the root? The 2. Remember, roots grow in the ground. So it's the square root of 25 over the square root of 9, all to the 3rd power. Okay, don't lose that little tiny 3 up at the top. He's your exponent. I don't want to do 25 to the 3rd power, and I don't want to do 9 to the 3rd power. I want to square root them first. So the square root of 25 is 5 over 3, now all to the 3rd. 5 to the 3rd, 125, 3 to the 3rd. Yeah, 27. What do you do with number 3? You have a negative on the outside. Flip it. So it's b to the 3rd over 8 to the positive 1/3 power. What does the 1/3 power really mean? A cube root, right? So it would be like the cube root of b to the 3rd. Guys, what happens with a cube root and a 3rd power? They cancel. Okay, technically, aren't you multiplying your exponents when you distribute? So how would you do 3 times 1/3? Don't you multiply straight across? 3 times 1 is 3, divided by 3 is just 1. Okay, so when you multiply 3 times 1/3, you really just get b to the 1st power. Can I just distribute the 1/3 to the top? No, you have to share the love, distribute it to the bottom. So that's the cube root of 8 on the bottom. Remember, the 1/3 power is cube root. What's the cube root of 8? 2. So final answer, b over 2. So if you have 2 little numbers, 2 exponents, you multiply them. If you have a large number and a small number, a base and an exponent, you change it to a root. Okay, if it's a fraction, it's a whole number, you don't have to change. So again, number 4, what do we do first? Flip it. So 9 over a to the 6th positive 2/3. Distribute that. That's a 9 a. So 9 to the 2/3 over a to the what? What do you do with those exponents? Multiply. You're distributing. So you do 6 times 2/3 without a calculator. 6 times 2 is 12 over 3 is 4. So it's a to the 4th. So the bottom looks pretty, but the top is ugly. Yep.
I'm sorry, I got so lost.
Oh, I wasn't there. She was. Oh. It's fine. Let's try that again. So what do I do first? You flip it. I know, you're supposed to be excited about that part. You got that right. So then you're going to distribute that to both the top and the bottom. So it's 9 to the 2/3 over a to something. You are distributing, which means you are multiplying your exponents together. So you do 6 times 2/3 without a calculator. And you have nightmares from 3rd grade because you forgot how to work with fractions. So 6 times 2 is 12 divided by 3 is 4. So when you multiply fractions, you really just multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. What's on the bottom here? A 1. So really, it's 3 times 1 is 3, 1 times 3 is 3, 3 times 5 is 3. Is that finished? Yeah.
So would you get the same answer if you did it like the cube root and then
Like this? Because you would do 6 divided by 3. You would rewrite that as a to the 6 over 3 squared. 6 over 3 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So you would get this answer. Yes. What's 9 to the 2/3? How do I rewrite that? That's super ugly. I need to make it way prettier. How do I rewrite that? Cube root of 9 squared over a to the 4th. Uh-oh, they tried to trick you. Cube root of 9 is a decimal, not a thing. Okay? You can try to do 9 squared. 9 squared is 81. Is there a cube root of 81? Still a decimal. Okay, so that's your final horrible looking answer.
Can you leave it as 9 to the 2/3 power? You have to write it as
You have to write it out just because, well, you can check in your head. If you know there's no cube root of 9, you can just stop right there. But you do have to check, make sure. Okay, number 5, I want you to try by yourself. Giving you 30 seconds. Yeah, do me a favor. Distribute and multiply those terms.
Oh, you
Of course you can. You just did like the, you guys both are trying to make life way more complicated. Distribute.
yeah,
Multiply those together first. Because then you can have one fraction together instead of 2.
yeah.
Just like if you had a to the 6 squared, you would distribute and multiply. Multiply top, multiply bottom.
I'm just thinking that we're not
All right, guys, what do you do first for number 5? Flip it. The outside number is negative. So 8 over 27 to the positive 1/3. What's the 1/3 power the same as? Cube root. So I'm going to cube root the 8 and cube root the 27. What's that answer? 2 over 3. Did you guys get that right by yourself? Did you feel good getting that right by yourself? Hopefully. Okay, what about the next one? The easiest one ever. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So the hardest part about this unit is it's combining every single mathematical exponent rule you've ever learned in your life. Okay? It assesses your ability to work with fractions, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. It assesses your ability to realize that these are both x's, okay? You can only combine exponents together if the base is the same. Like if I had 2 squared times 4 squared, could you say 8 to the 4th power? Do you think that's the same? Somebody get out their calculator and type in 8 to the 4th power. Or their phone. Okay, I'll do it. 8 to the 4th is 4,096. What's 2 squared? What's 4 squared? What's 4 times 16? Definitely not 4,096. Okay, so can you combine exponents together if the bases are different? No, the bases have to be exactly the same, which here we are lucky they are. They are both x's. What do you do with the exponents? Are we combining like terms or distributing? Combining, so that means we're going to add those exponents together. 3/4 plus 2/8. Guys, don't even write 2/8 down. What is 2/8? 1/4. That's amazing because now they have a common denominator. 3/4 plus 1/4 is, yeah, 4/4, which is just 1. Do I need that little tiny 1? Your answer is X. Reminder, when you're adding fractions, you need a common denominator. The common denominator stays the same, and you just add the tops together. Okay, when you're multiplying fractions, you multiply straight across. So after I just made a really big deal about the bases being the same, are the bases the same here? Which one is smaller? The 5. So the 5 is cool. The 5 can stay exactly the way he is. How are you going to solve this? You have to make the bases be the same. I told you the 5 could stay. How do you make 125 into a 5? 5 times 5 times 5, so 5 to the 3rd power. That's really cool, but what is totally missing from the beginning problem? 1/4. You multiply those guys. You bring this exponent down, and you end up multiplying those together. Okay, so you have to force the bases to be exactly the same. So now that they're the same, I can add my exponents. So I have 1/4 plus, what's 3 times 1/4? 3/4. 1/4 plus 3/4 is 4/4. 4/4 is the same as 1. 5 to the 1st power is just 5. So we're practicing that more later, so don't freak out. Hey, what about number 10? Number 10 is like an Algebra 1 problem. Distribute, good. Don't you dare say 12. What do I write with the 3? Yeah, 3 to the 4th power, x to the 4th power, and then y to the 8th power. You are distributing to everybody. Okay, so you multiply any exponents that you have. You attach the 4 to anything that doesn't have an exponent. 3 to the 4th is 81. And then you have x to the 4th, y to the 8th. Those are not like terms. You cannot add them together because you know that. Here, you're good. You're like, oh, I know they stay separate. But then sometimes people up here are like, I can put those together. Absolutely. Okay, it's the same thing. Make sure they're the same base if you're going to add them together. So what people try to do for number 11 is they try to solve the inside first and then the outside. But I have a way to make your life so much easier. Multiply those together. You can distribute, right? We've been distributing. We just distribute right here. Oh my gosh, now we can distribute here. So you have a 9. How do you multiply fractions? Straight across. So -5 times 3 is -15. 2 times 5 is 10. I don't want to do any of that. I don't want to do to the 15th power or the 10th root, but that reduces. What does that fraction reduce to? -3/2. Okay, that's really cool, but it still has a negative exponent, and I don't like negative exponents. Where does it go? To the bottom. So it's really 1/9 to the 3/2. What's the 3/2 power the same as? Square root of 9 to the 3rd. What is the square root of 9? 3 to the 3rd. 7. Final. Why is it on the bottom? There was a negative exponent. Guys, this is so cool. What happens in number 12? When you distribute, does it stay negative? It changes to positive. You don't have to make it a fraction. So you still have 27, that stays, to the -2 times -7 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21. What does that reduce to? Good, 2/3. Which one is the root? The 3, so it's the cube root of 27 squared. Cube root of 27 is 3 squared is 9. Final answer. What if there are all of a sudden magically letters that you need to deal with? No, you're okay. We got this. Is that outside number negative? Yes. Okay, so because there's way too much going on in here, I'm gonna flip that right away. Now it's all to the positive 1/3 power. Why didn't I flip this one right away, number 11?
In case the negatives cancel.
In case the negatives cancel off. And that outside number isn't negative. So you wouldn't flip it right away. Out here, yeah, the outside number is negative, but negative times negative gives you positive. Okay, so you need to be able to decide whether or not you want to flip that first. Here, the outside number is negative. There's nothing that would cancel it out. I mean, it might cancel with the 15, but then aren't you just going to make more negatives when you distribute it to everybody else? Yes. So flip it first. What is the 1/3 power the same as? Cube root. So guys, up here, I'm going to cube root 64. But down here, what am I doing? Multiply them together, right? You're distributing. So let's multiply. 9 times 1/3 is 3. 15 times 1/3 is 5. Cube root of 64 is 4 over x to the 3rd, y to the 5th. There are no like terms in there, so you don't have to subtract anything. You don't have to simplify anything else. Except that's not right. What did I lose? A negative. Oh no. That 15 right there is negative. What does that mean this 5 is right here? Negative. Can you have a negative in your answer? No. Where does that y go if he's negative? On the top. Stupid, sneaky negatives. So make sure you keep your negatives on the inside. The only thing that changes to positive is that exponent on the outside. So let's try that again. Where is the negative that I have to keep? Yep. Where's the negative I have to keep? Negative 24. So the 1/2 is going to change to a positive. I'm going to do x to the negative 24, y to the 8, all over 25. And then I'm going to distribute this through. Distribute to the top and the bottom. If they are little numbers, if they are exponents, you are multiplying them. So half of negative 24 is negative 12. Half of 8 is 4. Don't do half of 25. Okay, what do you do with the 25? Square root it. Good. The 1/2 power is really a square root, so that's a 5. Which one has to move? The negative 12. When I teach it in Algebra 1, I tell them that this is an apartment building, and you're in college, and there are parties on the top floor and the bottom floor. If the exponent is negative, he's not having a good time at that party. He doesn't like the music, whatever, or his friends are downstairs. So if there's a party downstairs, you're not going to go home. You're just going to move downstairs to the other party. So anytime you have a negative exponent, you move it to the downstairs party, and it changes to positive, likes the music better or something. Where does that 5 go? It's still on the bottom, but where do you want to put it if you want it to look correct? Yeah, in the front. We don't put x to the 12 and then that coefficient should stay. Okay, number 15. Do you have to flip anything? No. There's a 4 right here. Oh my gosh, be careful. What number is in the front? A negative 1. Oh my goodness. Negative 1 to the 4th power. Say it with me. Well, you don't have to say it with me. Just stay with me. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive. Times negative 1 times negative 1. Positive 1. If you do not change that to a positive 1, you get the whole problem wrong. Okay. You are distributing that 4th power to everybody. So negative 1 to the 4th power changes to positive 1. What do you do with these exponents right here? Multiply. So y to the 28 over, be careful, 3 to the 4th power is 81. We said that a lot today. Ooh, 4 times 12. 48, and then 4 times 3, 12. What don't you need in that problem right now? That positive 1 in the front. What do you have to do with these y's? Subtract them. Where are there more? At the top, 28 minus 12 is 16 over 81 z to the 48th. There are no more y's on the bottom. They're gone. So this would be your final answer. Check. Are there any negatives? Nope. So we're good. I do have a question though. If you had a negative 1y to the negative 12th over x squared, which one moves and which one stays? The negative 1 is going to stay where it is because what is its exponent? Positive 1. The exponent is the only thing that makes you move. So this would stay, and only the y would go downstairs. So negative large numbers stay, negative exponents have to move. Okay, last question on this page. What are we doing here? I don't want to. Yeah, I don't think this one's that bad. If you distribute, because I did tell you to distribute first, okay, it would be 125 over 27 all to the 2/3 power. Okay, what would you do first? Cube root everything. So it would be the cube root of 125 over the cube root of 27. Yeah, all to the 2nd power. The cube root of 125 is 5 squared. 25. Cube root of 27? 3 squared. Final answer. If you're looking at me like I have 17 heads because you don't know what the cube root of 125 is, you have some studying to do. Okay, I remember I did write them all down for you on Friday so that you could study them. So make sure you're continuing to remember what your powers are. Because not only are we simplifying, but we are also solving equations. So what's different about number 17? There's an equal sign. So I'm going to rewrite that because I can't even see it. Is that the 1/3 power? Guys, what's the 1/3 power really mean? The cube, no, this is a cube root, right? How do you cancel a cube root? You cube both sides. Do you remember, this should look super familiar from Algebra 2. Are you ready? That cancels. Okay? X equals, what's 4 to the 3rd? 64. Guys, how did we cancel the cube root again? We raised it to the 3rd power. Isn't that just the reciprocal of that fraction exponent? So instead of going through all of that process, anytime you want to cancel out a fraction exponent, you just flip it over. So if I flip over 1/3 and do to the 3rd, I skip that middle step and I have my answer. Okay, that makes it easier over here because what is that exponent? 5/4. Do you really want to change it to the 4th root with a 5th power and then you have to 4th everything and then 5th root everything? Do you want to do all of that? Say no. No, you want to just raise it to the reciprocal power. Both sides, raise it to the reciprocal power. Guys, technically, don't write this down. 5/4 times 4/5, what happens? Cancels. Okay, so technically, that's why we're doing this. This will all cancel, and you'll have x plus 2 equals, then you have 32 to the 4/5. Challenging you at this point in time to solve that 100% completely in your head without writing anything down. What's the bottom number? That's the root, right? So the 5th root of 32, 2 to the 4th power, 16. If you forgot, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. Okay, so there you go. Did it. Now what? Yeah, this is Algebra 1. We got this. -2, x equals 14. You also don't have to show me -2 anymore. You can just write x equals 14. Number 19 is like
Yeah.
The worst.
Yeah.
Can you do the reciprocal power thing right now?
No.
No, it's not alone. You have to get all of this alone first before you do the whole reciprocal thing. So what do you have to cancel out? Ooh, okay, so we want a -4 first. Oh, I hate every day in Algebra 1 my students do this. And I keep telling them they're like making their life more difficult because 4 + 4 is 8. We want it to cancel out. So we need it to be 4 - 4. We have -2 times all of this hot mess equals -60. Divide by -2. Now I have hot mess equals 8. You cannot do the reciprocal thing until the hot mess piece is alone. Okay, now that all of this is alone, you're going to raise it to the reciprocal. What is a reciprocal? -2/3. This is not perpendicular. You are not in Algebra 1 where you get to change the sign. Okay, you raise it to the -2/3 power because I want the negatives to both cancel out on this side. All of that cancels. X + 6 equals, okay, this is a negative exponent, so it goes to the bottom. What does all of that mean? What's the root? Cube root of 8 is 2 squared, 1/4. Don't just change it to a 4 because you feel like it. There is a 1 on the top because that exponent was negative. Yeah, -6. Oh, man.
-5 3/4.
Okay. That is a fine answer, but it breaks my heart inside, makes me very angry for multiple reasons, but that's a personal thing. It has nothing to do with you. Mixed numbers are the dumbest thing you've ever learned in your entire life. Okay, in upper level math, we only work with improper fractions. So that means this is over 1. What do you need to do? It needs to have a common denominator. So times 4 times 4. X equals 1/4 minus 24/4. Okay, we made a common denominator for a reason. It's going to stay the same. Subtract the top. -23/4. I'm sorry that your previous math teachers let you use calculators all the time and that you forgot how to work with fractions. I'm so sorry. All right, next page. I know you're exhausted. Make them all the same base. Make them all 2s. Okay. So, you might be able to figure out number 1 just by looking at it. If you can, that's fantastic. Okay, I'm going to show you a way that will always work. Which one of those is smaller? 2. So the 2 is totally cool. 2 to the 6 can come down. Guys, where is that x located right now that you're trying to solve for? It's an exponent. Can you take like the x root of something on both sides? How could you tell me the x root of 2 to the 6? It's not a thing. Okay, so in order to solve this, you have to make both of the bases be the same. How do you make 8 using 2 to some power? What power would it be? Yeah, so change that 2 to the 3rd power. So, step 1, choose the smaller number. Step 2, force the larger number to have that base with a different power. Then copy down what you're missing. What are you missing? X. Guys, if the bases are the same, don't the exponents have to be exactly the same for them to be equal? So guess what you can do? Cross off the 2's. 3x equals 6. If the bases are the same, the exponents have to be exactly the same. So if you divide by 3 on both sides, guys, this is exciting. You're back in Algebra 1. X equals 2. Number 2, which number is smaller? 9. So 9 is cool, it can stay. You can only cancel things out if they're the same, so you need that to also say 9. 9 to what power gives you 81 squared? If the bases are the same, the exponents have to be the same. If there's an equal sign, 4x equals 2. Don't say 2. Divide by 4, divide by 4, what's your answer? 1/2. Which number is smaller? The 2. The 2 can totally stay. I need the bases to be the same in order for me to cancel them out. So I need an 8 to change to a 2. 2 to what power gives you 8? 2 to the third, be careful. What are you doing with that 3 and all of that stuff? Distributing. So when you copy it with parentheses. Cancel the 2's and distribute. So 3x minus 3 equals x plus 1. Do you remember how to solve equations with variables on both sides? And all the x's on the left. So minus x. What do I get? 3x minus x is 2x minus 3 equals 1. Some people do it all at the same time, and they do plus 3 plus 3. If that doesn't make sense to you, then write it out like this, because you'll just plus 3 plus 3. 2x equals 4. What does x equal? 2. That's the answer for problem number 3. Not problem number 6. Which number is smaller in number 4? The 3 is smaller, so you need them both to be 3's. So 3 to the 10th is cool. I need this to also say 3. 3 to what power gives you 9? 2. What else do you need? X. The 3's will cancel. 2x equals 10, so x equals. And if you have more than just 2 numbers, do you think the same rules apply? Yes. Okay, so do me a favor, put a star by this one, because it's definitely on your quiz. It's probably the most difficult problem on your quiz, so I think you can handle it. What's the smallest number?
2.
Okay, only 2 to the 7th actually said 2. So you need to change the 8 into a 2. 2 to what power? Gives you 8. Third, copy down the x. 2 to what power gives you 4? Squared, don't write 29. What do you do with the 9? You multiply it. Okay, so that's your new problem. When you multiply powers, what do you do with the exponents? You add them, right? So when you cancel out all of your 2's, it's 3x equals 7 plus, what's 2 times 9? 18. 7 plus 18 is 25. Divide by 3, that's weird. What happens?
25 thirds.
25 over. Oh no, there's a fraction. How do you get a fraction using exponents? Don't you need a negative somewhere? So then all you need over here is some kind of negative. Okay, first of all, can I make a 9 into a 27 using powers? No, because I said look at the smaller number. But what if the smaller number doesn't work? Make a new smaller number. What number do you know can turn into a 9 or a 27 using powers? 3. So this one is easy. Let's start here. 3 to what power? Oh no, I said it was easy and I freaked you out. 3. 3 to the third. Copy down 1 minus x in parentheses. 3 to what power gives you 9? Squared, but it needs to be negative because that would move it to the bottom of the fraction. So anytime you have a fraction, just look at the bottom. I know 3 squared gives me 9. Just make it negative squared. That's not a thing. Negative second power. Copy down everything else that you forgot in parentheses. Now that they're both 3's, what can you do? Cancel them and solve the exponents at the top. So I'm going to distribute now to save space. 3 minus 3x equals negative 4 minus, nope, plus 2x. Again, variables on both sides. You got this. I know you guys like to add the 3x to the other side because somebody somewhere taught you to do that. I don't do that, but it works. I bring all my x's to the left always. Weird. So I'm going to minus 2x minus 2x. So I have 3 minus 5x equals negative 4. Minus the 3 minus the 3. Negative 5x equals negative 7. X equals what? Positive 7 over 5. Why is it positive? Because negative divided by negative is positive. So that's the answer for number 6. I know it's a lot today. This is what happens when we lose a B day for TSAT day. I have to teach you twice as much as the A day. So, welcome to number 7. What are you going to do? Think. Can you make an 8 into a 16?
No.
No. So use smaller numbers. Pick a new smaller number. You have to use a 2. So 2 to what power gives me 8?
3.
Good. Now wait a minute, guys. I want to change that to a fraction. Okay, what is that going to be? 16 to the 1/3. That's going to make my life easier when I find my exponent. Okay, so this is 2 to somebody gives me 16. 4, copy down the 1/3. Is it 4 and 1/3? Say no. No, it's 4 times 1/3. Good, 4/3. So this is really 4/3. You cancel out the 2's. 3x equals 4/3. And this is when we get to divide fractions. Okay. So we have multiplied, we have added, and now we have subtracted, and we're going to divide fractions today without a calculator. So divide 3, divide 3. That looks terrifying. That is like the scary clown with the chainsaw at the haunted house right there. Okay, he's going to chase you around. He's always going to be there, but he can't hurt you. So you can totally solve this. You'll be okay. That cancels. I don't want to write it like that. Can you do me a favor and rewrite it as divided by 3 off to the side? Does that look familiar from 3rd grade? Some teachers say keep, change, flip. Does that sound familiar? No? Okay, well, we're going to keep the first one exactly the same. We're going to change this to multiply, and we're going to flip that fraction over. Okay, when you flip that over, it's 1/3. Now you're multiplying straight across, so you get 4/9 as your answer. Yes, sir.
Wouldn't it have been much simpler just to multiply both sides by 3 and divide both sides by 9?
Yeah, you can totally do that if you want to. It's up to you. Also, guys, can I show you something? Didn't I write 4/3 divided by 3? What do you do with those numbers? Whoa, multiply them.
Wait, what?
What's 3 times 3? 9. That will always work. So if you're dividing by a horrible, scary fraction, you just multiply those 2 bottom numbers together. All right, what are you doing for number 8? Wait, this is kind of easy. Your bases are the same, aren't they? Yeah, so I don't have to change anybody. I'm just going to make things into fractions. So what's the square root the same as? What power? 1/2, copy down the x. What's the cube root the same as? 1/3. Cross off the 2's. 1/2 x equals 1/3. You can also write that as x over 2. That's how I would write it, but I don't want to confuse you. How do you cancel out a fraction? This is a division symbol. What's the opposite of divide? Multiply, multiply. That cancels. 1x is not necessary. It's just x. 1/3 times 2 is 2/3. Number 9. Can you make a 9 into a 27 using powers only? No. So pick a new smaller number. 3. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 Wait, what fraction exponent is that? Good, 1/4 x or x over 4. Okay, but I need 3 to what power gives me 9?
Squared.
Squared, and then times x over 4, bring that down, equals, how do I make this into a 3?
3 to the
3 to the third. Cancel the 3's, guys. 2x over 4 reduces to what? X over 2. So this is really just x over 2 equals 3 times 2 times 2, x equals 6. I am going to go over, I'm skipping 10, 11, and 12 because they're not on your quiz. I'm going to do 13, 14, 15, and then stop. Disclaimer,